So what up, Hank?
Hey, John.
How are you doing today, Hank?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. What did you want to discuss with me today? We're kind of just analyzing worldviews. So I guess
Let's
start
do
off.
that.
Yeah, what is your worldview? What do you believe your worldview to be?
So I'm an idealist. Also a Unitarian Universalist, and I pull a lot of stuff from just Eastern religions as well.
Okay, well, let's start off idealist. What do you define idealism to be?
Ideas are the substrate of the universe. Not,
Extract.
yeah. It's thought, not properties like a materialist would.
So thoughts are immaterial. Is that basically what that means?
I don't know what immaterial means, but the thoughts or the substrate of the universe rather than properties. You can tie everything back to a thought, but you can't tie everything back to a property
So
or
so it's
stuff.
so things start with a thought and then comes the material world.
Yes,
Okay, so there are you like a Platonist where there is a um, world of thoughts and concepts and things like that, and then like there's an actual realm, an actual like
it's not
thought.
separate. It's not a separate realm. It's just where everything is. It's underlying thoughts underlie it.
So it's like infinite potentia, where it's just a
Yes.
it's just a base the ether of infinite potentia that and what decides to for it to come from that to create material? What decides that?
I would say God.
God. Okay. How do you define God?
God's the background.
God's the back. So it's the same as the ether.
Yep.
So God is just in a concept of infinite potentia. And but so is it personal? Is it an actual personal, like a person?
Like a person. I don't know.
Because it to say something's intentional, that it's intentionally taking something from the ether and then creating something material, that requires a personal deity that actually has intentions and thoughts and a goal.
I would say it's personal if it wants to be.
That doesn't really mean anything. Personal if it wants to be. What do you mean
Yep.
by that?
So it's not out. It's in the possibilities, but I won't pin it as it's not a requirement. It could be personal if it wants to be. It's within its powers to be personal.
Well, it would either have to be personal or not,
Well,
right?
that's only if it's constrained by logic, which it's not. It's above logic.
Well, it would if it has intention and a purpose, it would have to be a person or a agent that picks and chooses what to take out of the ether and create materially the world.
But
So it
yeah,
would
I can
have
do that, but it's not constrained by logic, though. So it doesn't have to, or it could make a contradiction that we just have to
so
deal
God
with.
God can contradict himself.
Well, it can make things that we would interpret as contradictory, for sure.
Give me an example.
Jumbo shrimp.
What? What?
Jumbo
Explain.
shrimp.
What
Well,
about it?
we have shrimp are small, and jumbo means big, and jumbo shrimp or just shrimp that's bigger than normal shrimp. But some people say that's oxymoronic. Shrimp are small. But these are bigger than the
Well,
normal
I
shrimp.
don't know how that applies to what it is. That's just like that's just contextual within like you said, it's a bigger version of a shrimp. So you call
Yeah,
it jumbo. That's just basic like wording. It's not like
exactly.
eh,
It's a context issue. So maybe it's not
right.
contradiction
But what does
from the
that
God's perspective.
what does that have to do with purpose and intentionality? A personal God that there's an ether of an intentional of eternal, infinite potential, and a creator, somebody, something picks and chooses and decides what is material now and what is not, which would infer that it is intentional, meaning there's an agent, a conscious agent picking and choosing that. And if it's a conscious agent, would you agree that would be a person, have personhood?
Let me get that. Learn.
All right. Hank's doing something over there. His alarm clock's going off.
Sorry, I work nights and I have this alarm so I can make sure I wake up in the evening. So we agree as a person. Go ahead and define what you mean by a person.
A conscious agent.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a conscious agent that decides to take things from the ether and infinite potential, because infinite potential is basically everything and nothing.
Yeah,
because
either from itself.
Until it becomes material, it's actually nothing. It doesn't actually exist. It's just an infinite potential of what could possibly be. It takes a conscious agent to take that and make it material, to make it an actual solid thing that's not just pure illusion.
Yeah, but you need to understand that the solid stuff is made out of itself. The solid stuff is made out of nothing in the first place. So it's all the same thing, but we don't interpret it that way.
Explain.
So pretty much what it does is changes the state of the substrate, so we interpret it as something rather than nothing.
Well, there is, there's infinite potential of a million, trillion, quadrillion, infinite amount of things that could possibly be, but we don't observe that everything that's possibly created is created. So there's a personal conscious agent that decided to make and actually decide which potential to make actual in reality, a creator to make a creation. So, yeah. But now, who is this God that you're speaking of?
Pretty much, you can call it the Tao, you call it the Monad or the Ruliad.
Can you know this God, or is it unknowable?
So I assume the God's omnipotent, so it can reveal to me whatever it wants. But if it doesn't want to be known, I won't be able to know it.
Right, it would have to reveal itself to you.
Yeah.
Like divine revelation.
Yeah.
Okay. So what revelation do you believe is revelation? And because now we're past theism, and now we're trying to define which God that it is, because if God wants you to worship him, and if you want to worship God, you need to know your God to be able to worship him and know his laws and rules and things that he wants you to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now and you said it has to be revealed through revelation from God himself to let you know who he is. So what do you take as revelation?
You must have just used my senses.
Well, God is immaterial. He's not within your senses. So how are you to know him?
I guess it's unknowable then.
No, I mean that if he revealed, you said it has to be revealed. It has to be divinely revealed.
But
so like within Christianity, God revealed himself to Moses in the burning bush, revealed himself to the Jews, and then revealed himself within flesh to know, so we can know him even more personally on the cross as Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we can see it and touch flesh, but if he's just immaterial, then that one would be unknowable. He didn't reveal himself.
Well, he's not. That's why you can't have the Unitarian, because if he's Unitarian and he's one person, then he has to be either unknowable or knowable. God within Christianity, God revealed himself as a man in the second person, Jesus Christ, came in, limited himself and put himself within human nature and human flesh so that we may know him personally.
All right. So, assuming an omnipotent God, what would stop God from revealing himself to as many people as he wants?
Well, explain.
So, if he can reveal himself through one prophet,
Are you
why
saying
can't he
why
reveal
doesn't he just
himself through every prophet?
why doesn't he just click and now everybody knows God and knows him? Well, then there would be, because God wants you to worship him. He gave you. Do you believe you have free will?
Free will is poorly defined. We can't. Other people have debated, like I find Illuminati couldn't even get to an actual position. They just how what happens when they try to get to free will? Pretty much, what happens is they say that God controls everything you do, but it's still your fault for it. And that's free will. It's
Well,
just plain.
it is you being a conscious, like you said that God would be a conscious agent
Yeah.
making decisions and choices to create what he wants out of the potentia. He created you as a person in his image so that you have a conscious agency to make choices and everything, because otherwise you cannot be judged for your actions. You would basically just be you would just be like an animal, or it would just be pure instinct. It wouldn't actually, there wouldn't be morality. There wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to make choices. So you would basically just be an atheistic, materialistic dominoes of a meat robot. So there has to be free will. Otherwise, it is basically incoherent for
Yeah.
anything like morality or truth or anything to be defined. It would just be, what would be the point in that if
It is an
everything?
incoherent. Free will is an incoherent idea. If God knows every possible choice I can
No, I'm
possibly
saying
make,
it's incoherent to not have free will,
no, it's
because
incoherent to have free will, because if God knows every possible choice I can possibly make, and He's going to let me go ahead and make those choices that change what I can do, then
well, like
blame
you
me
said,
for the choices I
he knows
did make.
infinite, he knows infinite potentia, right?
Yeah, if He's
But
going to let
but
me
he
make
made
my
it.
choices to blame me for it, then He's just pushing responsibility
No,
on me for
but
something
that
I
does,
didn't have
just
control
because
over.
there is infinite potentia doesn't mean he materializes all potential.
Yes,
Just like
but God
you
materializes,
have,
not me.
but you have, just like you have almost an infinite potential to do different
So,
choices and things like that, but you only materialize and choose one of those things.
yeah, so who's materializing the choices, me or God?
God materialized you and gave you the conscience, conscient agency to make your own choices as well.
You didn't want to answer the question. Who's materializing the choices? Who's materializing the reality, me or God?
God creates the reality and then created conscious agents using his image, so similar to him. In the same way he has conscious agency, he gives that onto you for you to make choices so you can choose him freely. Otherwise, he would, like you said, just snap his fingers. Everybody now believes in God. What would actually be, that would become meaningless. It would, to worship God or not would become absolutely meaningless. To make choices would be meaningless. It would all be an illusion. So we would be every day right now just acting as if we're making choices. It would be an illusion and thus would be meaningless again.
Okay, so you want to reassign blame to the agents because it makes you feel you have meaning.
No, I mean, if there is no meaning, then there's no point to any of it, and it's just basically an endless regress of cycles and dominoes falling. There's actually no point to any of it. That's just the conclusion of not having free will.
So here's what you don't understand. There could still be a point to it, but it may be too complicated for us to understand what it is.
Well, how would there be a point if you're not actually making decisions and actually, like, there wouldn't even be anything that's true? It would just it would just there'd be no way to determine what is true and what is not.
If your presuppositions, no. But there still could be a
It would
point to
just
it, even
be,
though you don't understand.
because it would just be, and there would be no way for you to determine whether your choice is making any difference, or if you wouldn't have any actual, because you have to be able to make choices. So what is the point of this God creating the world and creating us if he's just going to determine everything that we do anyways?
I'm not sure. It could just be for that God's entertainment. I don't
Well,
know.
why would he need, he doesn't need anything. So why would he want or need entertainment?
Maybe he doesn't need it, he just wants it.
Why would he have, does God have desires?
I'm not sure.
Right. So the point is that God wanted to have create something similar to himself. And the only way for us to truly worship him or love him or know him or anything like that is if we have the choice to choose him or not. If we don't have that choice, then we're not, do you truly love someone? If you don't have a choice in the matter, do you truly, does it truly
depends
mean
on what your
anything?
definition of love is. So what
I mean,
does you
does truly anything have any meaning if there is no conscious agent to make a choice and analyze and determine things? If there's no meaning to it, and it becomes nihilistic.
what do you mean by meaning?
A purpose, a goal, a reason for things to be.
So if we go by Jim Bob's definition of meaning, just everything that's created has meaning.
Right, because God is, you agreed that God is a conscious agent intentionally choosing things to be material. So that means it is with a purpose, meaning everything has meaning.
Yeah, everything creaturely has meaning.
What do you mean by that?
So created things have meaning. God itself would not have meaning because they're not creaturely.
Well, God would just be, he would be infinite because he is the eternal Alpha Omega. Definitionally, God is separate from creation, right? But that doesn't mean God is void of meaning. God would be the meaning. God would be the meaning. He would be the point.
Meaning is I think it's things creaturely things have. God's not creaturely, so God doesn't have meaning. God wouldn't need meaning.
Well, he is. He would be the mean.
Okay.
Yeah, he would be the meaning for all. But so we would have to, because otherwise everything is an illusion if there is no free will. There'd be no point to worshiping or choosing God or not. There'd be no point. There'd be no real way to determine truth. There'd be no morality. There would be no purpose. There'd be no love, no grace, no mercy, no anything. There'd be nothing without free will.
So is it within God's power to make a universe with no meaning?
It's not in his nature. He has the ability to do whatever he likes, but he chooses to not to do certain things.
But you said it is within his power, correct?
Well, what you're doing is like, can God create a rock that can God create a rock that he can't move?
Yeah, right? Of course.
But that's just God is
God
a separate category.
No, God couldn't decreate rock. He so big he couldn't move. So what he would do to do that is just have multiple timelines. So he makes a rock, and one time he can't move it, and another time he can't move it. So it hits all categories. So it's pretty simple.
Well, would it actually be a real thing, or it would just be an illusion? Because we can't possibly know that. You're just saying there's you're doing the multiverse theory now.
Well, that's a workaround that could explain why God could make a rock so big he can't move it, while he could still move it in some other timeline. So it satisfies all criteria.
That would defeat the purpose of the question. That would just, because then that would be the infinite potentia that we're talking about, but not be materialized. It would just be going back to infinite potentia, which is just an illusion until it becomes material. And so, but that is a categorical error, because God in himself, it's just kind of a contradictory like question. It's a malformed question because God, because you're basically saying, can God? That's basically saying, can God create a contradiction or whatever? Can God be a
Yeah.
contradiction?
And I'm saying yes, and you're saying God's limited by logic.
No, he's not limited. He has a nature to where he won't do certain things. Doesn't mean he can't, but it would be self-defeating if he were to do it. There'd be no point to do it. It would be completely contradictory. And God does not. God is truth. He wouldn't contradict himself.
So why did God create evil?
He didn't create evil.
Okay, we need to do a Bible study then. Okay. Isaiah
No,
45:7. We do a Bible study.
Okay, go say the verse.
Yeah, let me get it up. So, should you want me to share the screen too, so the audience can follow along, or do you think they can find it in their Bibles themselves?
They could probably find it themselves. I mean, if you want to share it, you can, I guess.
Yeah, we might as well. So it's so this is King James Version, Isaiah 45:7, my favorite verse of the Bible. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So there you go. God says he created evil in the Bible. So
well,
why
that is taking a one specific verse and applying it to everything with it, everything else. I understand that. I think it could be rhetorical. I don't know that. I haven't. I would have to go research that. Sweater says bad translation. Because yeah, it could also, that's another thing. The Greek could say something different. I mean, if you want to look up a separate translation of the actual like Greek and how it was originally said, like in the Septuagint, like look up the Septuagint version of that. Because it probably doesn't actually say evil in the actual Septuagint, and I'm pretty sure that's actually the case.
Well, yeah, I know it gets translated as well-being and calamity, but the lack of well-being,
and that's completely separate. So calamity is not the same thing as evil.
No, it absolutely is, because the opposite of calamity is supposed to be well-being, and even the atheists would say if the opposite of well-being
God does, we don't go off the well-being model. We don't say just because God himself was tortured within Christ, was tortured and everything, but it was for the betterment, for the good. And he didn't have well-being whenever he was being tortured and put on the cross, but it was for the betterment of all. It's not about like what I personally feel right now. Can you get good from non-well-being? Because it also says that God, even with all evils and things like that, creates good out of the evils.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and what I would say is that God didn't create evil. Evil doesn't have its own status. It is a deprivation of God.
Either God created evil or evil created itself.
No, it doesn't have its own status. It doesn't have its own status like good or like things like it doesn't have its own status. It is just the deprivation of God.
It's a true dichotomy. If God created, pretty much either God created evil or evil created itself.
No, God created the world. God created the world and saw it as good. Saw everything as good. Created man. Saw it as good. Then he gave man a rule, and man decided to go away from God and sin. And sin is just going away from God and God's laws. And so evil is just the deprivation of God. It doesn't have its own status. Whenever there's light and darkness, there is no actual darkness. It's just the deprivation of light.
Okay. So who allowed people to go away from God's law? Who gave man?
He gave us free will. So we have the option to choose him or to not choose him. And Adam sinned.
So that means if God didn't want anyone to not follow the law, you would just make it impossible.
then you wouldn't have, then there would be no point, and you would just be basically you would be a complete slave chain robot that actually isn't making. God wants you to love him truly, and the only way to truly love him and choose him is for the option for you to not choose him. There has to be an option, otherwise you're not actually choosing him. There's no actual agency.
So you said it was against God's nature to do contradictory things. So you have a contradiction right now. You can either have a God that wants everyone to follow laws, therefore all the laws will be enforced in a way that no one can break them, or doesn't want everyone to follow the law, so won't.
Well, that's just a false dichotomy. That's just a false. No, because God gave you a conscious agency, like he has conscious agency, and he gives you laws, and by you following or not following the laws determines whether you truly love him or not. If you didn't have that option and he just forced you to love him, that wouldn't actually be love or worship.
So does God have any laws he has to follow?
Does God have laws? No, he creates the laws.
Okay, so how's following laws part of our nature if it's not part of God's nature?
Well, God creates the laws. He is the law. God is judgment. Like
so
he is this thing. These are the energies of God. It's not his essence. His essence is something we can't imagine or see or know in its wholeness, because we can't comprehend it with our human reasoning. But we know God through his energies like love, mercy, judgment, righteousness, wrath. Things like these are God's energies that we know him from.
But you said it's not in God's nature to do something self-defeating or contradictory. So,
right, and
you're in a contradiction right now because of your
how?
emotions. Because God doesn't have to follow laws, but we're supposed to follow laws. That doesn't make any sense.
We're not the same as God. Do you think that we are God?
We're made out of God. We exist because God created us.
Yeah, God created us, and there's a differentiation between a creator and a creation, and God and a human. We are two separate categories.
Okay, I can grant that, but how would you know what God wants us to do?
That is through, like we discussed earlier, revelation. That is the only way. We can't know it through natural theology, because you can't personally know God just by looking at the trees in the sky. You can't know God by natural theology. You have to have it through divine revelation, like we discussed. And the only way we know the divine revelation is that he revealed it to us and gave us the scriptures and revealed himself within flesh to even deepen our understanding of him.
So is flesh natural or not?
Is flesh I mean, that is, what do you mean? Like that flesh is within the material world.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So he's revealing himself within the material world. So he's using nature to reveal himself to us.
Right, but that's him coming into nature and doing all that. You can't not his creation. You can look at the creation, and the best you can get is a generic God. You can use the fine tuning argument and see generic God, but you can't personally know which God or what God is unless he divinely reveals himself to you.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and that's why there's so many disagreements with the nature of God.
Well, there's no other religion where God became man and died for his sins and all these things. There's
Dionysus. Yeah, pretty sure Dionysus is one. I guess Hercules you can interpret that as one. I mean, there's a bunch of religions. We can go with the Buddha, but
then we have to go through. We have to go with the consistency and the coherency within the whole worldview of that. Because a lot of those, like mythology and things like that, they are incoherent. They're gods. Hercules wasn't even a god. Hercules was
a demigod. Yeah,
a demigod. And though there is no real god there. It's just an infinite set of gods that created gods, and they're all immoral and have no standard. So it's an incoherent worldview.
Yeah, just like free will, which is also incoherent.
Well, you're just asserting that, but I already showed you that without free will, there is no such thing as truth or morality or purpose.
Yes, but
So
you're
that's
presupposing we need
incoherent.
that.
That's self-contradictory.
You're presupposing we need that. Why can't we live without
What
that
else?
stuff?
What else would it be?
Why can't we live
You
without
you
meaning?
you would. Why can't we live with no meaning?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, you can be nihilistic, but that's not what we observe. That's not what we see. We all act as though we have choices. We make choices every single day. And so what you're saying is an illusion. Nothing means anything. What's the purpose? Just end it. Who cares?
I didn't say that.
I mean,
You're
what's
saying that. You're saying if we don't have
what's
meaning,
the
we might as
point?
well
What's
end
the
it.
point? All that mindset does is turns into hedonism, materialism, and meaninglessness, where you just basically, end yourself, because why not?
Yeah,
Right?
that's your assertion. My assertion is that people can just create their own meaning, so you don't need
Create your own meaning.
Yeah, you can create your own meaning. It's context dependent.
So how could you create your own meaning? Just because this within you're just like, okay, well, this means something to me subjectively right now. But
Yeah.
within the context of the entire world, it is meaningless. It's just so it's all individualistic so truth is subjective.
Well, truth goes up to intersubjective based on groups of people who agree on the same thing.
So it's truth is just consensus. So if everybody agrees that this vape doesn't exist, does that mean this vape doesn't exist?
So there's limits. There's
Okay,
some stuff
well,
in the universe.
so you're caught in a contradiction right now, are you not?
No, because you can't.
No,
there's
it's subjective, and it's based off of what is consensus. If we all agree that this doesn't exist, does that mean it doesn't actually exist?
Well, if we define existence as pretty much if we could see or touch it, then it would still exist even if we play peekaboo with it. You could play peekaboo, but if we could still run into it, then it still exists.
Is morality, but if you're saying truth is objective, that means morality is also subjective. So if the society decides murder's okay, does that mean murder's okay?
So the definition of murder is an illegal killing. So they can't even define. Just based on law, they couldn't define it. They would just say homicide's okay because murder just implies illegality. Okay, so they could say homicide's okay, and they
you know what I'm getting. You know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, I want to be clear in my language, though, so I don't contradict myself. So they could say homicide's okay.
It's an unjustified killing.
They could say homicide's okay, and they do say homicide's okay in certain instances. For example, self-defense, or
that would be a justified. The murder is unjustified killing.
Well, they can't say this illegal thing's legal unless they say it's legal now. So no.
Is morality based off legality?
Well, morality is based on the people's opinions. And once people want to enforce their opinions,
if one person says graping is okay and another person says it's wrong, how do we determine between the two who's actually right?
Pretty much right now, just whoever can enforce their policy.
So might equals right, is what you're saying.
Ultimately, yes. And God's almighty because God's almighty.
No, it might equals right. So just whoever has the biggest gun gets to decide what's actually moral. There's no actual standard behind it. It's just so if the world is complete, if the standard's God, okay, and how does he he reveals that through revelation, right?
Yeah. And
okay. So what revelation are you basing it off of?
So I assume God's omnipotent. And because God is omnipotent, he determines what happens. And since he determines what happens, so he allowed it. He allows everything that happens to happen. And if he didn't want to, it wouldn't happen.
Okay, well, yeah, allowing something is not the same thing as him doing it personally, because there can be secondary causes, which is human beings. We are secondary. He created something that can cause things and has conscious agency so that it can make its own decisions and thus has a secondary cause. God is not the direct cause of everything, because once again, then it would just be all an illusion and meaningless. Once again,
How would you tell the difference?
how do you tell the difference? I mean, it's because it's self-contradictory if you say that it's all an illusion, but I'm still going to be talking to you right now and trying to make an argument. It's just an illusion. So there's no, like, you're not actually making argument. You're not actually making points. You're not actually trying to argue anything right now. There's no point to it. It's just an illusion. It's self-contradictory.
The point for me is we get some understanding. But if someone like animated us talking to each other, then I guess your argument would make more sense. But still, we're doing this live, so I actually don't know where you're getting at.
I'm saying if you're saying that it is all determined, then us talking right now actually there's not actually talking. We're just doing a determined process that God determined this process to happen. It's all an illusion, and there's nothing actually happening right now.
Okay, I don't understand what you mean by illusion or actually. Could you define those for me?
Something actually happening. So something like we're having a conversation, and depending on, because we have conscious agency, it can actually make a change or a difference. And the illusion part is if we're just talking right now, but there's no actual way for us to make a change or a difference. So there's no point to it, and it's just illusionary. It's not actually happening.
So let's assume we're puppets controlled by God, but we're following the script. So is it illusion still or not?
It would be an illusion. It would just be in the script. There would be once again that you can't have morality, you can't have truth, you can't have meaning. You're getting rid of key components to life and God.
Okay, so pretty much you need the agents to be responsible for everything that happens in the universe, even though that's God.
No, for their own actions. You have to be responsible for your own actions, and each individual is responsible for their own actions.
Okay, so just assigning blame. I gotcha.
Their judgment. It's not. I mean, you're downplaying it, but there has to be judgment. Otherwise, there's no action. There's no. Once again, it's an illusion. You can't be judged for something if you're predetermined to do it.
Why not?
If you're not actually doing anything, then how are you to be actually judged for it?
Just God's opinion. You said, "Well, we made you do this. I changed my mind. I'm going to punish you for it now."
So he's just a wicked, like he's just playing The Sims, and it's just a simulation. He's just gone, yeah, no, I think you should go to hell, and this other person should go to hell. I don't need a reason.
Could be. It's in within God's power.
I mean, this seems like pure nihilism.
Well, I have God still, so it can't be pure nihilism. Pure nihilism requires atheism.
I mean, no, it is nihilism, because you're just saying that God created puppets for him to do whatever he wants, and there's no point to anything, so fuck it, right?
No, nihilism requires atheism, so it's something different. It's more like
you're basically just doing an atheist viewpoint and just putting on the God mask, because that's what atheists believe. They believe in determinism. They believe that it's just a series of random events and everything that's just predetermined, and it's all an illusion. So it's the same thing.
No, I think the proper term is to be predestination, because I'm a theist, not nihilism.
Well,
I would say it's predeterminism.
Predeterminism equates to nihilism, because you're not actually making a choice. So fuck it.
That's just your opinion.
No, there is no opinion. I'm being puppeted, right? I don't actually have an opinion. You don't actually have an opinion. We're not actually talking. There is no us There's just a skin suit that's being puppeted. There is no Hank. There is no John. We're just being puppeted, right?
I think you're having a context issue.
No, that's the consequence of that viewpoint.
Yeah, I think you're having a context issue. So in the context of this conversation, we kind of assume that we're agents and talking to each other, but you want to pour it out and say, well, we're made of particles and all that stuff in motion, so it doesn't count, and that's just absurd.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying if you don't, we're predetermined to do it, so there is no actual agent, so there's no actual person. There's no you or me. It's just skin suits doing a script.
But you're saying that doesn't count, and that's absurd.
How can you be a person without being a conscious agent?
Well, you pretty much pretty much just free just means blame anyway. So all you need to do is blame someone for whatever happens, and that's free will.
I think you're see, that's where you're just kind of like slapping that on. It's not just about blaming other people or whatever. It's having consequences, having action, being able to do actions, and those actions having consequences. And there's nothing wrong with that. How can you tell me what's wrong with that?
Well, like I'm 5'7", and someone says, "Well, I prefer someone 6 foot tall," and it's just my free will to not grow tall enough, even though I don't know how to do that. So that's the problem with that.
That's just a preference.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not part of my will how tall my body grows. So that's the issue.
Okay, yeah, your genetics, you could say, are predetermined, but that doesn't mean your mind, your agency is not predetermined just because your body was determined by genetics.
Yeah,
and it's not purely genetics either. It's also environment, where if you're malnourished and things like that, it'll stunt your growth. So it's genetics and it's epigenetics, genetics and environment as well. But we're talking about we're talking about conscious agency. We're not talking about your body. Are you more? Are you not more than your body?
Who the hell knows?
Well, if you're not, then we're just once again puppets, just doing a script.
Yeah,
and there is no actual Hank. So it's just illusion. It's a skin suit of an illusion of a thing called Hank.
So why is it not within my will to just grow like another half a foot? Why is it outside my will?
Well, not everything is under your control. You aren't God.
Exactly.
You have limits within your genetics, and you can be biased within your genetics and your environment. It can be biased, but that doesn't mean you can't go against those biases or make a certain separate choice.
Yeah.
But you can't go, I want to be 6 foot. No. There is limits within it, but that doesn't mean there isn't free will.
Yeah. So we need to figure out what parts are just the free part. What is the dimension of freedom we got?
It'd be your conscious agency. It wouldn't be your body.
Okay. So where does the consciousness come from?
From God. You are within God. God has conscious agency. We both agreed to that. And you are an image of him, so he gave you conscious agency as well. The mind.
Yeah.
Which isn't just the same as your brain.
So once again, that part comes from God too. So
what?
The morphology of my body comes from God, and my choices also come from God. So where's it?
What do you mean?
So we kind of haven't found where the difference is between just the puppet thing and the free will thing. Where's the difference at? Where's the line of demarcation?
Is you are a conscious agent able to make choices that isn't predetermined by a series of factors? It can be influenced by those series of factors, but it is not determined by those factors.
Okay, what's the limit of the influence?
It depends. You have your genetics, you have your environment, where you grew up in, things like that. They can make you biased towards a choice, but that doesn't mean you can't go against that bias to make a separate choice.
So how do we measure where the difference is?
What do you mean? Like, how do you know that you're not just, going through you're just going off whatever you were grown up with or whatever?
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there thinking about it, and I mean, there's no way for us to truly know everything, but we can, and there's plenty of evidence to show that you can make separate choices, even if you're influenced a certain way. That doesn't mean you can't go against that and choose something separate. You can. There's people who can flip their entire life around.
Yeah, but how do we know
if you're genetically predisposed to being a drug addict, does that mean you have to be a drug addict?
I'm not sure.
No, because we observed that that's not the case.
Maybe they were genetically predisposed to not be a drug addict.
No, there's people who are predisposed because of genetics to be drug addicts, but never pick up a drug and never become addicted to drugs.
But how do you know we didn't just misinterpret the genetic code?
Well, now you're just basically saying, well, we don't know, so whatever. But that's there is a certain line where we can't know everything, but we know for a fact. Like I said earlier, it comes down to more of if you aren't making these choices, and I can't. Now that look. Now Shiva's here and everything. We're supposed to have a debate on free will. I'm giving him ammo. I need to stop right now. What the hell, man?
Oh, Lord,
what are you doing, Hank?
Coming after you. Apparently, I'm giving a homie a bonus. I'm giving a homie a leg handout.
Giving him homework or whatever. Yeah, exactly. You're giving away my secrets, huh? You're giving away my secrets, Hank.
Absolutely.
Now you can do some homework. Well, it doesn't matter. He can't go against it.
I might as well go
because he's not actually making a choice. He's not actually making a choice, right? It's just you're predetermined to do it, so we're not actually arguing right now.
Well, I better finish so Shiva can just collect sloppy seconds. I just ruined his day.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's pretty much no algorithm we can use to figure out the difference between stuff we can make a choice in and stuff that's just built into us. Or if you do have, which go ahead and present it.
Well, it's not purely genetics, and just like it's not purely environment either.
Yeah, where's the free part?
Free part is you can go against your genetics and go against these things. You can make a choice outside of them. Doesn't mean you're not biased. Everybody is biased, but that doesn't mean you can't go against your biases. Like I just said, if you were predisposed to being a drug addict, that doesn't mean you're going to become a drug addict. That just means you're predisposed to it, but you can choose to not be.
What does predisposed to being a drug addict mean?
Like you have genetically are predisposed to have an addictive personality, but you can not be that. Doesn't mean yet you're determined to be an addict. So you make a choice.
Does it mean? How do we know we just didn't read the genetic code wrong? We thought it meant that, but we just read it wrong.
I mean, we could, but like a woman who is an addict or whatever passes on the trait to 3 different children who are all predisposed to be drug addicts. One of them is, one of them isn't, and I'll just say 2 to make it simple. One of them is, and one of them isn't, but they're both predisposed to being that, because one made a choice and another made a different choice.
So we just made we extrapolate from a group to an individual.
Also, you're ignoring the original presuppositional argument where if there isn't actually free will, then you're not actually making any choices. You're not actually you're not arguing right now. We're just basically we were predetermined to have this quote unquote argument, and whatever we say actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you extrapolate from a group to an individual, and that's in some sense, in some place, in some context, that's fallacious. You just can't do that because
In some context, that's fallacious.
yeah,
What's fallacious?
extrapolating from a group to an individual like BMI does. It just doesn't apply consistently enough down the order.
When did I do that? What are you talking about?
Just that's how you said someone's predetermined to be a drug addict. You extrapolate from a group down to an individual.
What are you talking about? It's one mother is an addict and has the trait of addiction, passes that trait down to two children. One is a drug addict, one isn't. So one made a different choice than the other because they can make choices.
No, it could have been random.
It's all just random and meaningless. Once again, it's just nihilism.
Could have been random.
There is no. Where do you observe randomness?
I mean, we use randomness to
secure. What is there is no actual randomness. There's probabilities. There is if we could go through and look at each individual molecule, if like you're throwing a ball, you're like, oh, that went somewhere random. No, if you calculate the wind resistance and every little factor, you wouldn't be able to determine exactly where it is. And that's what we do with mathematics and things like that all the time.
Interesting. So do those particles have free will?
Particles aren't conscious agents.
Those particles aren't conscious agents. And are we made out of particles?
You're doing a composition fallacy. What's true of one thing doesn't make it true of the whole, and vice versa.
Okay, so we have a composition fallacy, we have a decomposition fallacy. I'm trying to figure out where that demarcation line is. Where's the free will? What level is the free will?
We're talking about things that are mind dependent, that goes on mind. We're not talking about bodies and in our physical bodies, we're talking, I mean, your body can influence, if you are unhealthy and everything, it can affect your brain, which then can affect your mind, but they're not the same. You still have a conscious agent, you still have a conscious choice.
Yeah. Now I say that's determined at the God level. When you say you don't like that means everything's meaningless. So what level is it determined at?
What level is it determined at?
Yeah, where's the free will determined at?
There's genetics and there's environment, and that affects choices and that affects your mind, but it doesn't wholeheartedly mean that you're not actually making a choice, because if you're not making a choice, then there is no you to be making choices. That is the consequence. You're not actually if you're not actually an agent, there is no actual person named Hank that's making choices. You're just a meat robot.
So it just comes down to blame.
You keep saying it just comes down to blame. Yes, you have actions, okay, but we're not talking about the conscious consequences. We're just talking about there is actions.
Yeah.
You just keep saying, but there's blame. But
yeah, so why is it not my fault that I didn't grow to 6 feet tall?
Because that is more genetically based. You didn't consciously decide in the womb, I'm going to be this. God determines that, your body. And God, as well as genetics and environment, determines that. But your mind is not the same thing as just your body, unless you think the mind is just the brain, and once again, it's predetermined, and we're not actually having a conversation right now. There is no Hank. There is no John. It's just a preset dominoes effect of inputs and outputs.
Okay. So all we need to do now is figure out where the mind is.
Where the mind, it's based off of God's mind. I think you would agree with that. God's mind is the standard from which our minds are created.
Okay, but isn't that meat puppet thing? Or
no, he gave us a mind like he has a mind, and he is a conscious agent. Thus, we are a conscious agent as well. It makes secondary causes.
Okay. So if the mind's at God, meat puppet, but where else are we putting it?
What?
I just not
it's
confused.
very simple. If you are a conscious agent, then you can make choices, you can be a person, and you can make those choices as a person. If you are not a conscious agent, then you aren't actually making choices. Hank isn't actually a person, you're just a predetermined set of outcomes. And you're not
So,
actually we're not actually arguing right now. We're just doing input output right now. And there's no
alright.
point to it.
So is my height part of my personhood?
No, your height, your physical body um is not the same thing as your mind. Do you think the mind and the body is the same thing?
I would say yes. I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, then it is predetermined, and you're just a meat robot that's not actually making choices. You're not actually a person. It's just input output.
Okay, so if the mind's not the body, what is it?
It is a conceptual apparatus that God has given you based off His mind, His own apparatus.
So can you point to it? Can you show me what a mind looks
No,
like?
you can't point to it materially. You can point to your brain, which is like a receiver of the mind, but it's not the same thing as your brain.
Okay, so is the mind exist as an aura around my body? What is it?
Or we don't fully, it's consciousness, and consciousness we can't fully describe or ascertain or what it is, but we know we have it. Otherwise it's predetermined and there's no actual Hank.
So pretty much consciousness is blame magic. So if we don't have, we can't blame.
You just keep saying blame. It doesn't. We're not talking about consequences. We're talking about actions. Actions do have consequences, but we're not talking about blame. I mean, yes, if we're talking about morality, the only way to have morality is if there is a conscious agent making choices. Otherwise, you're predetermined to do it. You're not actually doing anything wrong or right.
I'm just really trying to distill this because I really can't separate consciousness from blame at the moment because you can't point to it, you can't show it to me, and you say,
but yeah, where are you getting blame from? I don't understand.
You do
because it's not just morality; it's all these other things as well. But if in the context of morality, yes, you can't be blamed for something if you had no choice in the matter.
Yeah, exactly. So you do actually understand.
So you're just trying to get away from blame. Is that what it is, Hank? You're just trying to run away from having any blame?
Well, you can blame me, but if I had no control in the matter, then I'm not going to
exactly. So you're just trying to get away from consequences. Is that what it is, Hank? You don't want to be.
I can't avoid consequences at all. I mean,
you don't want to be judged by your actions. Is that what it is?
People are going to judge me whether I want them to or not.
God can judge you?
Yeah, including God.
Okay. But the only way they can do that is if you're a conscious agent. Right?
So God's not capable of judging things that are unconscious now?
Does God judge animals the same way he judges humans?
I'm not sure.
He doesn't.
Okay.
Do you think there's like a really good a good badger and a bad badger, or are they just going off instinct? What you're doing is basically reducing us to animals. We're just like basically just like running off instinct, a script or whatever. Just we don't have rational mind capabilities or anything like that. We're just an animal.
Yeah, but doesn't mean God couldn't have an algorithm to determine the difference between a good badger and a bad badger. But you're saying that it does.
So where do you see that God, is there a doggy heaven and a doggy hell?
I haven't really seen any heavens for myself. I guess people
within Revelation, is there any indication of God judging animals like he judges humans?
No.
Exactly. Because they don't have the moral capability and the rational minds that we do to make judgments and things like that. That's why we're responsible for our actions, not the same way animals are.
Yeah, so some people say.
Some people say a lot of things. I mean, that's not an answer.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, the same Bible
but
chapter says God created evil in the first place.
I do gotta go.
That's
I
fine. We
appreciate
had a great conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Come back next time. I for sure stream on Wednesdays, but I might stream sometime throughout the week. But Wednesday is a guarantee. I will be streaming. Thank you everybody for coming out. Thanks for subscribing, church. What up, Jeremy? What up, Sweater? What up, everybody here? What up, Christine? Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all for coming out. Yeah, I'm going to play like one song and then I'm going to head on out of here. All right. Let's see which song. I know. I got to do some stuff. I gave you some stream. I do need to stream longer because the longer I stream, the better the algorithm likes me and the more people can show up. But, regardless, I got stuff to do. I'm going to play this one. When I'm by your side, it's like I was high. It's like I could fly. One last good night, arguing fights, taking a ride. I'm wondering why. One last goodbye, goodbye, good times, good try. Oh yeah, speaking of which. Also, hold on, let me do this. I'm gonna link my Discord in the, because I started the Discord. It's not really like super active right now, but I am going to link my Discord so you guys can join it in the comments. Let me get to that real quick. But while I do that, I'll keep playing this song. Good one. Could we try to turn back the time? Better off alone, 'cause I feel so wrong and I can't drag you down. Call you on the phone, but it's been so long and I don't know you now. Love is like a show. I can binge you all day, just loyal when you're not. Life can be so cold, and I love you always, but always never home. To hell with the caution, I'll never let you go. Feeling is toxic, you're killing me slow. Feel like we lost it a long time ago. Heart in these boxes that never seem to close. Close your eyes, tell your lies one more time for me to hold. All your cries, no surprise. One last time for me to know. Better off alone, 'cause I feel so wrong and I can't drag you down. Call you on the phone, but it's been so long and I don't know you now. Love is like a show. I can binge you all day, just loyal when you're not. Life can be so cold, and I love you always, but always never home. All alone, never home. All alone, never home. Better off alone, 'cause I feel so wrong and I can't drag you down. Call you on the phone, but it's been so long and I don't know you now. Love is like a show. I can binge you all day, just loyal when you're not. Life can be so cold, and I love you always. All right. Peace out, everybody. Have a good rest of your night. All right. Wierdo John out.